How's it going, everyone? Justin again, as always. Thanks for watching my channel. Welcome back. Cheers to those of you that have your beers. Hopefully you're not affected by the virus going around. Today's discussion topic is more of a push-pull, more of a I watched this and this is my response. So we'll just do a little response action here. This response video comes from Michael, aka the Flat Rate Master, and I'll put his link down in the description. I like Michael. I've been watching him for years. I actually thoroughly enjoy his content. I haven't watched too many of his videos as of lately because I've been pretty busy with my own things kind of going on in my personal life. And so I decided to sit down this evening and actually watch one of his videos that he did about a week or two ago. And it was called Tool Needs Indy versus Dealer Techs. And I had a little bit of agreements and I had some disagreements. So I just kind of wanted to briefly talk about that. Earlier in the video, he states that, you know, if you're a Honda tech and you're primarily using 12, 14, 17, and maybe occasional 19, you probably can get away with using those sockets without having to use many other sockets. I'm going to have to disagree with that one. Granted, I know that Honda, specific to their fasteners, will utilize, you know, 8, 10, 12, 14, 17, and 19. But what about the used car department? Because you might end up in the used car department of that dealership, in which case now you're using more than just your even numbered metric sockets, okay, or the occasional odd number like 17 and 19. But you are going to run into situations where you're going to need 13, 15, even 11 from time to time. You could get a Ford in, you might need that 5.5, okay? You're going to run into situations with skid plates where you're going to need a 7mm. So I understand what he's saying when he says what he says, because at the Chrysler dealership, for the most part, I kind of got away with using 13 and 15 for the most two common sizes outside of 8 and 10. And I can tell you that I had a used car department and I would get used cars that would come in for inspection, and I was going to have to use other sizes. Now, one of the things that I didn't run into too much was SAE. We would get a couple of older Chryslers that came in, like the Dodge Ram 1500s and so forth, that would use like 9/16 or ½ inch in place of something like a 13 or 15 or what have you. But for the most part, all I really needed was metric. I didn't really need SAE. In fact, to this day, I still don't really have any SAE in the ½ inch size. I have metric in ½ inch, but I have had a need to use SAE in a ½ inch size. I just borrow it from my boss or from my other colleagues at the independent shop. But I didn't use SAE at the dealership. I only used metric, so I still only to this day have metric. And I'm sure at some point, when room creates itself, I'll buy an SAE set when I feel the need. I run into it a lot more at the independent shop than I do at the dealership. The dealership, I rarely ever ran into an SAE need. But when you needed it, right? I think the primary socket that I used was an 1 1/16 for our oil pressure sending unit sensors. Other than that, I really didn't use SAE, except for the occasional sizes which I've already covered. He does go on to talk about special tools. He is absolutely correct. You are going to use a lot of special tools at the independent shop that you wouldn't otherwise use at a new car dealership. Because if anything involves a special tool at that point in time, it's usually going to get shoved away, put back on the tow truck, and shoved to auction or what have you. At the independent shop, you don't have that luxury, right? You kind of have to be the jack of all trades as far as manufacturers are concerned. So forever, we're looking up special tool numbers off of All Data or Direct Hit and going on to Amazon or onto eBay to see if we can't find one and get it ordered so we can actually do the job. So you are going to run into situations where you have to provide a lot of the specialty tools for the jobs that come in. Whereas at a brand new car dealership, they already have a specialty tool room and you can go and borrow them as you need to. You might have to talk to a shop foreman or a service manager in order to get access to the special tool room. Some dealerships don't make that a requirement, but some do, because let's face it, tools sometimes grow legs and walk away, right? There's a lot of thrifty people out there. It's not the right thing to do, okay? Borrow it, return it, and then use it when you need to use it, and then put it back soon, because somebody else is probably going to need it shortly thereafter. Don't hold on to it for the entire day. That's my little rant about that. When it comes to scan tool and software updates, yes, it was so much easier being at the dealership with software updates and having that diagnostic manufacturer-specific software and being able to perform those jobs without having to purchase software online and having a special scan tool with a J-box in line with the DLC in order to actually use a laptop to communicate with it to get the software update completed. So in that case, yeah, the diagnostic equipment over at the dealership is far superior to what it is that we have at most independent shops. One of the other things that he talked about briefly was having the ability to call an operator of some kind, okay? And he's right about that. When I was at the Chrysler dealership, they used to get pretty upset about it, but I would call them Star Command, okay? We had an operator that if we got into a diagnostic trouble tree issue and test this, if this, test that, if this, test that, if this, test that, if no results have been conclusive, call this number. So we could call the telephone number and actually get a hold of an operator and discuss with them what the parameters were of what it was that we previously inspected and tested. And off those parameters, they would give us a new direction to go to, or some way of being able to finish troubleshooting it, or at least repair the known issue, because they already are aware of so many cases being performed and it being a known issue where they should already have an idea and a direction for you guys to go. A lot of these guys are trained engineers and they're specified and special in this one manufacturer. So yes, we no longer have that. All you can really kind of gain off this from an independent shop standpoint is to look at direct hit or Identifix. It's one and the same thing. You'll notice that I say that both. It just depends on what you call it. But at any rate, you'll have like a 70, 30, 10 kind of split where it's 70% of the repairs, they replace this component, which fixed the problem. 10% of the repairs, this was a known issue. And then, you know, another 10 or 20%, this was a known issue and this is what fixed it. And so then you can kind of gauge your trouble tree chart off of what happened with the vehicle. You can go through the same exact troubleshooting tree that they went through and see if your parameters meet what theirs did in order for you to get a better idea if that is in fact the failed component. So in that situation, it's not the most best information out there, but it is the only information that we're really going to have outside of calling a friend that might work at a dealership to see if he can't drum up some information for us. So there's going to be a lot of different situations that you're going to run into at the independent shop that you're not going to have to run into at a dealership. And that was the meat and potatoes that I took away from this video, okay? He's right. There's less stress, there's less cost as far as the special tools that you have to buy, and even down to the specialty sockets that you have to buy from the independent standpoint than you would, say, a dealership standpoint. Because chances are, at a dealership, you could pretty much get away with a basic mechanic set or an apprentice set and probably be money for the next 5 to 10 years without ever having to buy anything special on top of that. Now, I will tell you that when I was at the dealership before I had left, there was a couple of things that I did pick up from Mopar Essentials, which is their special tool, which is a snap-on based program that works directly with Mopar and the Chrysler manufacturer to create their special tools, most of them being OTC branded, but you could actually get the Chrysler specialty tool that you're using on a regular basis. One of the ones that I picked up was for airbag recalls, that I could slide in and unfork it and pop the airbag out, because we did it quite frequently. I think I actually gave it away or sold it to a friend of mine that still worked at the dealership, because I found another way of being able to do it without having to have it. But that was one of the tools that I used all the time because it made my job easier without having to run around the shop looking for it. Another one I think I had picked up was, that's right, there was a spanner wrench set that I had picked up from OTC that I had to use pretty frequently with Jeep, the 3.7 liter. And so I picked up the spanner wrench made by OTC that I had to borrow pretty frequently, and we only had one of it at the dealership. So I had bought one off of Jeff and I just held on to it, and to this day I still use it for those cylinder head jobs that I do on 3.7 liters. So you are going to run into situations at the dealership where there's only one tool available and maybe multiple people are borrowing or using it at the same exact time, and it's a waiting game, and waiting for that tool to come back to you costs money, right? Because you're no longer making your flag rate at that point, because you either got to take a break, go to lunch, or hope that they get done with it soon and try to figure out what else you can do until that tool is available again. So some tools at the dealership you're going to end up buying specialty tools for. In fact, I have a friend of mine. He doesn't work at Chrysler anymore, but he used to, and he did so for many, many years. I want to say between 20 and 30 years he worked at Chrysler. And he has bought a fair amount of Chrysler specific specialty tools through the Mopar Essentials website. And in fact, his whole stand-up locker was made up of his own specialty cabinet. So he never had to go borrow the dealership specialty tools because he wanted them made available right away and no one was allowed to borrow his. And from that, he was able to generate some pretty good hours off of it. So there are times and situations as you progress, the more years you have at a dealership, where you may end up deciding to do that as well. Just food for thought. So this was my little, kind of response video, if you will, to the Flat Rate Masters video that he did. Again, I love Michael, man. He's a great guy. I've been watching him for years. I just hadn't had a chance to sit down and watch any of his content. And I was watching this video and I was like, this is something that I wouldn't mind chiming in on and sharing my 2 cents with. So I hope you guys liked the video. If you did, make sure to smash a thumbs up. Share if you want to share. Let me know what your thoughts and opinions are down below. Michael, if you're watching, I appreciate you, man. I really do. I just wanted to do a response video and throw in my 2 cents. Cheers to those of you that have your beers. See you guys next time. Deuces.